You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I was going to say, Jake, before we get into our picks for the game, let's talk a little bit about things to do in Provo, Salt Lake City. Sure. If an Oklahoma fan was heading to Provo, what is one restaurant you'd recommend? The number one. Now, this is non-paid. This is not a sponsored recommendation. We're just asking Jacob Hatch right here.
I'm going to say Bam Bam's Barbecue. It's one of my favorite spots. It's right up the road from Provo. Cam Treyu, the owner, has actually been trained down in Hill Country in Texas, outside of Austin, is where he kind of learned the ropes of Texas barbecue. He brought authentic Texas barbecue to Utah, something we've been severely lacking in this market for decades, frankly. He does a really, really good job. Like it said, about a 5-minute drive away from Lavelle Edwards Stadium. So there's one place I would encourage you to go eat. It'd be Bam Bam's, but there are a myriad of other really good spots in Provo itself as well. But yeah, I'm all in on the barbecue. And I know that Texas fans are gonna be like, okay, barbecue in Utah, how good can it really be? I'm dead serious, folks. We've been pining for a barbecue spot of this caliber, and we've had it luckily enough for the last 5 or so years.
And okay, will there be ice cream in the stands?
So I'm expecting ice cream. The problem is this is a 10 a.m. game, so I'm not sure how BYU is going to handle this, because they've also handed out brownies in the past. They have the famous Cougar Tell as well. And John, you and I have talked about the Cougar Tells in the past. It's somewhere between 15 and 18-inch long maple bar, and it's a morning game. It's 10 a.m. You probably want to get your breakfast on. That's a fun way to really spike your blood sugar. I can tell you that much. I have a hard time finishing a whole one myself. I can barely get through half of it, so I would encourage you to give it a shot, but share with a friend or two or a family member that you happen to be at the game with. So I'm anticipating they will hand something out. It is supposed to potentially have some rain in the forecast here in Provo, which is kind of atypical of what we've been experiencing the past few weeks. We've actually had really beautiful November weather here in Utah, so it's unfortunate that rain does show up. It could mar what would be otherwise fantastic weather for Oklahoma fans coming into town. But so brownies, ice cream, Cougar Tails. I'm not 100% certain what's being handed out, but something will be handed out by BYU to all Sooner fans.
Can you talk a little bit about how that even started? Because it's a cool phenomenon that's been taking place for some time now, where BYU fans will always present some treat of some sort to the visiting fan base. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's just a hospitality thing. I actually don't know necessarily when it started. I know it's been in the last 4 or 5 years, really, is when they really started doing it. And the whole idea was just to essentially a goodwill gesture for people traveling to Provo. BYU has an on-campus dairy that makes all their ice cream, and it's sold right there on campus, and it's sold in multiple outlets around the community as well in the greater Utah Valley area here. So it's just something I think BYU realize, you know what, we can promote goodwill by obviously giving people sugar and making them feel good, but also at the same time, it gives BYU some advertising opportunities with some of the products that their own creamery on campus does make.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. I didn't realize that they had their own creamery on campus. Yeah. You have my attention. Well, I am attention here. I wish I'd have made the trip. Unfortunately, can't always do the thing. So let's pick.
Yeah, let me just insert one thing on the creamery side of things. I would encourage you to give it a shot, because they've got a gazillion different type of flavors. They're all, like I said, churned, made on campus. Kalani Sitake has got his own flavor. Mark Pope, the BYU men's basketball coach, has one. Lavelle Edwards, obviously the late Lavelle Edwards, he has his Lavelle's vanilla. So they've got a lot of really, really popular flavors. You can't go wrong, it feels like, with their creamery ice cream.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for that insight. Oklahoma fans, if you're going to Provo, make sure you hit those up. Let's pick some game. All right. Who wants to start? Josh, do you want to start with you? How do you feel like this one's going to go? What's a key to the game for the Oklahoma Sooners?
The key for Oklahoma is hang on to the football. If Oklahoma does that, then, you know, with all respect to our friends from BYU, I just don't think this is going to be particularly close. Now, Oklahoma fans, as we've discussed, and BYU fans know this too, once upon a time, maybe wasn't supposed to be all that close either, and it wound up being a big-time shocker. So they play the game to play the game for a reason. But I do feel like this is, even though Oklahoma had lost back-to-back games on the road, I think they, to quote our friends from Austin Powers, got their mojo back versus West Virginia. And I do think that BYU is not really trending in the right direction the past month for me. So I look for Oklahoma to take care of the football, lean on the run game like others have versus BYU. Maybe not put as many points up, even in a successful offensive day, as some Oklahoma fans would like. But I think when it's all said and done, it's a nice. I say, maybe not put up as much as some would like, but I'm gonna pick 42-21. I think it's gonna be a healthy OU win.
Well, 42-21, I'll just insert my thought right now. That'd have BYU covering the spread currently. It's 24 points. It's been fluctuating around. Then it's actually one of the biggest home, dog spreads the BYU's ever had in their football history. And kind of opposite what Josh is saying, for BYU to have any chance, I already kind of gave away my key to the game. You got to force turnovers. Now, you do need to have your rushing attack come alive. They do have two healthy running backs in Aiden Robbins and LJ Martin for BYU offensively, and they actually had their best rushing performance of the season last week against Iowa State. Can that continue? That'd go a long way to helping BYU, but it feels like, Josh, if BYU wants to win this football game, they got to give their offense multiple short fields, and they got to cash in those turnovers for touchdowns. Field goals will not do it in this game. I'm still feeling like Oklahoma's going to win this one pretty handily. I think your points there, Josh, kind of 42-21. I had the whole thought like 41-17 for Oklahoma was kind of my thought on this. So we're in a similar thought process there.
Yeah, I feel like the Oklahoma defenses really came to life last week against West Virginia. And, it was a good first drive by the Mountaineers, but then Oklahoma really came to life and shut everything down and allowed the Oklahoma offense to take the game over. It was a really impressive performance as a team unit. And then late in the game, they were able to create a couple turnovers. I just think Oklahoma's defense has another really strong performance in this one. I don't know if Oklahoma gets to 40 points in this. I think they should, but given that you're looking at a 35% chance of rain, it's going to be early in the day, could possibly be a bit of a sluggish start, having to start at 10 a.m. in this kick. So I think it could be a little bit of a slower start maybe for Oklahoma's offense, but I think as the second quarter and third and fourth quarter go along, they really start to turn things up. I think it's another big day for running back Gavin Sawchuk, who's had 100 yards each of the last 2 weeks, and the Oklahoma Sooners rushing attack. They continue to find their footing. Give me the Oklahoma Sooners 38, BYU Cougars 13.
Okay, so I think we're all kind of in the same like idea of like where the spread kind of sits in terms of the margin of victory here, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited. Sooner fans, I just want to say first off, I'm here in Utah. I grew up in this state. Hope you have a great trip to Provo. Obviously, we don't know when the Sooners and the Cougars might ever do this again, but it should be a fun time all the same. And that morning kickoff is going to be an interesting feel for BYU because, like I said, it's been nearly 20 years, 2004, the last time the Cougars played a morning kickoff.
Are you doing radio stuff that day?
I will be. I host our pre and post game coverage for my radio station, the KSL Sports Zone here in Salt Lake City. So I will be doing that, but I will also be at LaVell Edwards Stadium in between. We do our pre and post game coverage from a location just almost right across the street from campus. So we do that, finish up pregame, wander on over to the stadium, watch the game in person, then wander right back to do postgame. So it's really, really fun.
Is it like a public spot where like a restaurant where people can come and gather and say, hey?
This one is not going to be, we typically do. So we had, without saying too much, we had a sponsor that, let's just put it this way, had to back out, and it would have been fantastic because we had the perfect spot, and it was going to be sponsored by a local eatery and all that type of stuff. Things fell through. So this one will not be as public as I would have liked to have been, because I would have loved to have been able to kind of commingle and get to know some Sooner fans.
All right. Well, if you see Jake at the stadium, make sure you go say hi. Tell him that you're locked on with the Locked On Network. Follow Jake on Twitter at Jacob C. Hatch. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh on Ref. Myself at John 9 Williams. Subscribe to Locked On Cougars and Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But for Jake, for Josh, for John, the 3 J's. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your college football action.